I would just like to thank you, the governor, very much for bringing an assembly of so many minds in this year 2016. When I started this bank 1966, we were just a few people, and the people didn't know what we were talking about. I could never have envisaged things like that. Certainly not him, the governor now, a man of very great learning and mind. There was one other man, I think we worked together, called Professor Ryan. We developed a plan for this country called African socialism. And it must have a central bank. And we must replace Victorian currency. But what is the central bank about? Nobody really much knew. And by then, we had changed the currency, and the currency was known because it was called Kenyatta currency. We brought down the European, the British currency to by nearly 1/3 in value. And you people are doing great things to try and explain how all this money business works. During my time, the French possessions for the previous, who are becoming independent, use the French franc, the French overseas franc. And they devalued it 50% overnight. And we who are in the central bank couldn't understand. We also understood they also controlled minerals. Now, how do you have a central bank? Doesn't it control these sort of very important things? I understand it's still the same. But then, that was an old order of things. The World Bank, IMF were gaining power. And they could advise us, and they could tell us, they could guide us. Now, the World Bank and even the United Nations are no longer leaders in the world. And we have been left closer and closer with the European Union. We don't know European Union. You know the British. The British are our European Union. And they have left the European Union. And we are guided by the British. They've been our friends, they've given us loans, they've given everything. What are you now? Where are your friends? It is a new world order. The dollar is no longer supreme. More important, people in the world do not work the same.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is an important milestone for Kenya. So I'm very happy to have this opportunity to reflect upon your journey over the past half century and to discuss with all of you the way forward. Briefly taking stock of development in central banking and monetary policy over the last 50 years, and then placing those development in the African context. Traditionally, the primary objectives of the monetary policy have been to maintain price and financial stability and to help achieve full employment. At times, there may appear to be a conflict between the goals of low inflation and economic growth. But we have learned from hard experience that high inflation distorts the private sector savings and investment decisions, leading ultimately to a slower growth.
It's a great honor for me to welcome you to this symposium to mark the apex of the Central Bank of Kenya's 50th anniversary celebration. Central banking in Kenya is traced to the general price instability that emerged after World War I and the subsequent acceleration in the establishment of central banks across Europe. Before then, the East African Currency Board performed the traditional central banking functions in the East African Community region. Shortly after attaining independence, the three EAC countries at the time, that's Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, established their own central banks in order to provide for monetary and financial independence, indicating that the growth that has taken place in the country in terms of numbers of commercial banks, which increased from 12 in 1972 to 40 to date. And of course, an expansion of branches, and including also the size of the banking sector, total assets growing from 30% of GDP in 1972 to 56% of GDP in December 2015. The conduct of monetary policy, too, has changed over time. In the years after the establishment of the CBK, monetary policy was generally passive. The bank had limited authority over monetary policy management.
I take this opportunity to congratulate the central bank on this jubilee, on this golden jubilee. 50 years is certainly a period worthy of celebration and an opportunity to reflect on the milestones attained, the lessons learned, and what lies ahead. This symposium has brought together